Welcome to Lola and the Poets, a podcast on the magical reel. Hello dear people, and welcome to the 9th episode of Lola and the Poets. We're back for winter solstice, and my guest is Dragana van der moortel-Ilić, an astrologer, an educator, a scholar, and a very dear friend. We hope you enjoy.
Hundreds of thousands of people are going to listen to him over the radio, and unless he says something that's sensational, it's just no good.
So hello Dragana, and
hello,
welcome
Mila.
Welcome to Lola and the Poets, a podcast on the magical reel. And considering that you are my first guest after a very long time, and also that I know you for a very long time, you're a most special guest, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity for a chat. And I think that's going to be a really interesting chat because you know a lot. And these are very interesting times. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll just kick off with a bit of celestial weather report, because you are a fantastic and decades-long astrologer with lots of experience and lots of wisdom.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and thank you for your invitation. And yes, if I have to introduce myself, I have a problem because I don't know how to do it, but I'll try.
Where to start? Yeah, well, just tell us what you're doing now. I think that's the easier thing.
Yeah,
and then kind of getting a short bio out. So what is it that you're doing now?
Okay, I'm astrologer. I'm also a researcher, and there are two activities that I can combine, which I find very important, and I'm very enthusiastic and fascinated by. I'm independent professional astrologer, working also for the Faculty of Astrological Studies in London, and also I do research on medieval frescoes, especially on cosmological elements in 14th century medieval mural paintings.
I think we will get to that in the second part of the show and in detail, because it's absolutely fascinating. And I think that you are pretty unique in what you do. So people should continue listening. Even after we talk about astrology, they shouldn't drop off, because the second part is going to be some super specialist knowledge, which they really can't hear in many other places. But before we do that, let's talk about what's going on now in the skies. There's a few important shifts that everybody's talking about. So we're going to talk a bit about what everybody's talking about. Then we'll try to talk about things that maybe nobody's talking about, which I'm sure that you are also privy to. So that's going to be fun. Let's start with the most obvious shift, super generational shift, which is the movement of Pluto into Aquarius. It did a bit of a dip earlier in the year, and then it went back to Capricorn, and now it's heading back to Aquarius again. So what would you say are the major themes of this quite significant move?
Yes, in 2023 and 2024, we have this movement of Pluto between Capricorn and Aquarius. It was Pluto has been in Capricorn from 2008, and it entered Aquarius in the spring this year, and in the summer it went back to Capricorn. It's still in Capricorn. In January it goes back to Aquarius, and then in the autumn 2024 again to Capricorn. And I mentioned in the beginning that I'm very much fascinated by history, and some parts of history attract me, and I just go deeper and deeper and try to understand how people were thinking about which values they had, how they integrated different things in their life. And it's also about Pluto. Nobody knows what will happen, and we all know what's going on now, and we are all probably a little bit afraid and fascinated or enthusiastic, expecting that Aquarius will be, the sign of freedom and free and happiness, and it will bring us all, liberation. But probably it's too far to look for. So, what happened in history? So I want to go back to history, to two historical moments, but one of the two is for me more important now. So last time, this shift of Pluto coming to Aquarius happened during the French Revolution. Mm-hmm. And, this was not that easy and that happy period in human history.
It was an amazing shift, but it wasn't it was extreme, let's say.
Yeah, but I want to go, one step back and see what happened in the 16th century, when also Pluto had this shift, Capricorn, Aquarius. And there are two things actually which happened approximately in the same time as we are now, with this Pluto being still in Capricorn. One, the British King Henry VIII, he made a constitutional break from Rome.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And the other, Martin Luther, started with the Reformation. And they both started, there are, like 10, 20 years differences, but this is also a process. It's not just 1 year and this happened. But this is all the first half of the 16th century, when in this very important world of Catholicism, of the Western Christianity, two separate Reformation movements were busy. They're different, but the same is that they said no anymore to authorities that they had. And also they didn't both agree. I can compare, this Henry VIII and Martin Luther. Of course, they're totally different philosophically and historically, but
different motivations as well.
Yeah.
Different motivations for saying no, but still the same result.
Yes, and they had enormously a lot of critics to all rules, and Capricorn is about rules. And now we are in the period, I think, that we all are very active criticizing rules. And especially when we look last few years, when Saturn was also in Aquarius, and Saturn gave us a little bit of taste of Pluto in Aquarius, and Saturn-Jupiter had a few years ago conjunction in Aquarius. And they say, okay, what is this? What is about Aquarius? And in one moment, we all lost freedom of movement and all the world, very global. We had with the lockdown a totally new theme, and this is, okay, what's going on? And we polarized enormously for or against whatever theme it is, but we are polarized. We are for something or against something. And now, this period is coming like the period when both Henry VIII and Martin Luther managed to start with their projects, with their reformations. And now we are really starting to build a period of next 20 years of a sort of reformation of the old system, that we are used to many things that we like. We like some rules, which makes us feeling safe. But we also see that political systems, the hierarchy, the power centers, that
they're shifting. They're shifting. What I wanted to ask you, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to say something that is on my mind quite often when we talk about Aquarius, is that its actual old ruler is Saturn. So it's not without its own rules.
Yeah.
It's just different systems, because what you're saying is that there was a change in saying no, and it was very it was dynamite when it was happening. So it was completely changing the landscape, but then new rules were implemented. So it wasn't without rules, it's just different rules.
Yes. And so I go back to Reformation. There are so many books and translations and fine translations of the Old Testament, for example, that Martin Luther did. He really went again to the roots and said, okay, that's it, but let's look again to this. What is this really about? And now, Saturn is serious. Saturn is professional. So we need now a sort of professional touch in whatever we do. And we don't have to be huge professionals in our business or so, but to be, I would say, professional in management of our own life. What also happened in last years, and I connected a little bit with the Chiron in Aries, which works together with the Capricorn energy.
Saying a little bit about Chiron, just if people are not aware of just a few of its themes.
Yes. Yeah. Chiron speaks about some remembering or something what happened in our life, and what we can connect with something painful, with our some sensitive point, or themes that make us either sad or angry, but have some need for healing. And already several years, this Chiron is now a dwarf planet. It was a planetoid until not so long ago. And Chiron entered Aries. And Aries is the first sign of zodiac, which is also connected with head, but also with thinking and being aware of, okay, who am I and what I want to do.
And also between Saturn and Uranus, I think, as well.
Yes, it's a position of Chiron is between Saturn and Uranus. And we are talking now about the Aquarian period, Pluto in Aquarius, which is coming to very much dominate the coming years. And this Chiron, which is between father and son mythologically, Saturn and Uranus, they are father and son. Uranus is father of Saturn, and they had very painful relationship because Uranus didn't really like his children. And so this Chiron says to us, okay, be aware of your own pain. Your pain has to go to your head in some way. And last years, there's so many podcasts and YouTube presentations and books about traumas, healing your own trauma. So I come to this point, like being professional to ourselves. It's not being romantic or emotional. So it's like, okay, I have to scan myself very objectively. to see where I am personally, where is my pain, where is my problem, where is my trauma, where are my complexes, and what I do with it. Not to sit and cry, I'm so, the unhappy person. We are all happy and unhappy in some ways, but to see, okay, how can I heal myself? What do I do with what I have? We all have some disability in some way or some problem. And I think that, with Pluto being between Capricorn and Aquarius, and Chiron being in Aries, that before we start to speak about the collective energy and what will happen with the world, we really have to heal ourselves and to let time also heal us. First, if we are aware individually, where are we, what do we have? We cannot change everything in our life, but we can be aware. This is the very first step.
In trauma, it's very difficult to be aware because often the actual trauma is where our blind spot is. It is the place which we don't want to look at and which we learned also not to look at. There's a difficulty to have a look at something that we trained ourselves not to look at. But on the other hand, because I think you said, of course, because it's in Aries and Aries rules the area of the head, that it's becoming more clear and obvious to everyone of what it is that it's stopping them. The inner sabotage. With the trauma, it's not only the pain, it's the way we deal with pain, but it's also how we sabotage ourselves in order not to feel the same pain in the future. And this is what we learned when we were very young. So that worked when we were kids, but it doesn't work anymore. It just hinders us.
Yes, but with Chiron in Aries, it's like people start to be aware spontaneously. We cannot say, okay, now be aware of your trauma. It doesn't work that way, of course, like you said, because it's our blind spot. But I realized, working with clients and observing my own life, that, like fruit which starts to be ready to be taken off the bomb of the tree. And we just are ready to confront our own weak spots or to see our blind spots. And, the problem is if we are not aware of our own problems or limitations or saboteurs inside, we cannot really contribute in changing the world. So what we see now, those terrible wars, which are quite close Europe, it's really like collective confrontations of people who are not aware of own pain. So it's easier to say, okay, you're my enemy and you're guilty for everything, because then we start war. Then, we have to win in the battlefield against someone else.
Yes, and it's both conflicts that are now happening at the same time, one after the other, are conflicts between people that are extremely close to each other.
Yeah.
And I think with the Chiron themes, that it has to do a lot with intimacy. And we're most intimate with something that we see every day. And in terms of countries that are historically in constant dialogue, because they have to be geographically, they're either the same place or exactly neighbors. So that's also very interesting.
Yes, geographically, culturally, emotionally, in all ways. So I would like to go back to our private systems and private lives and working on, I name it professional. I say professionally, it's not really it's good word professionally. It's always good to work together with a professional on our own themes. And now it's time that many people, I really know so many people who start a dialogue with a professional with this question, okay, where am I now? What I'm doing? What where I'm going to, what is the meaning of my life, how can I use my potentials on the best possible way. And this is also this beginning of Aquarian period. And if we want to create something collectively, we have to be very ready individually. So that's what I see in those last 3 years, especially this is like three years together, 2020, sorry.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time in our own space because of the pandemic. We couldn't really do anything but spend time with ourselves and the people that we are intimately involved with and share space with, because there was no choice almost to do differently. And that is very, it's kind of a lead-in into what is going on now. And that is what you're saying, that with your clients you have, and with yourself, of course, and me with myself, that they are perhaps more open to take on what is their traumas and also their inner saboteurs head on, which is very Aries. Just head on, look at what. Yeah.
You know this phenomena. If we are very much afraid of something and we do it anyway, I think it's those last years are also connected with fears. Saturn is the planet connected with fears, and we all were confronted with some fears, and still they're there. And it's like, okay, the world is difficult, the world is changing, economy is making us also afraid of our future, but we do what we want to do when the time is ready. It's really now the period, especially this year, 2023 and 24, to see somehow, okay, what I want to do, or what our soul tell us to do. Our soul tell us to do. It's like many people are better connected with their inside world, we can call it intuition or soul, or we don't have to be religious in order to address the soul. We can explain it psychologically. But we had so much Saturn, activities of Saturn last year, that we see that if we only follow rules, we have no life anymore. We are not robots. We cannot just be.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. In terms of Saturn, also Saturn is the Lord of time. So we become aware of just the time of our life, that it's not endless, that it has a limit, and how we will spend it, what we will do within that time that we're given.
And we have Neptune all the time in Pisces, which is a fantastic place for Neptune. And this connects us with this mystical part of ourselves, and makes the general landscape around us. This Neptune makes us like confused. There is no guidance for everyone, like you do this and then you will reach this, and it's like, I have to follow the rules on one side, but I don't know anymore. Do I want it or not? Then we have this feeling, okay, where is my way, what I want, what is my inside voice telling me? And then Neptune is leading us very individually and very spontaneously to some mystical way. And I think that people without dreams, there are probably, I don't know, many, but there are people without belief that, there is something else, there is some power or universal love or God or whatever, which help us, reaching some fantastic destiny, even if we don't really know what is this. We just believe and we go forward, and then we we meet people that make us happy and that we also make happy. We come to situations which are very fruitful and nice. But, this combination of following our own inside voice, working on our own system with help of professional or just being very serious with own life and responsible, and believing in this something else, which is not in power of anyone, which is like, universal.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is with Neptune. What I find quite important is that its influence is very, very subtle. So we most see it in the negative sense when people either drink or do drugs and all sorts of escapism, because they did not develop, or their development on the way of relating to the great mystery is somehow corrupted by their own traumatic experiences. So in that sense, they have the need, but they do not know the right, well, not the right way. What is the, I mean, it's not really a judgment, but they don't know a way that is more direct. And I also think with Neptune in Pisces, which is where it really belongs, in the ocean, is that our souls, and this is a very Jungian thing, but it's not just his, is that the soul is naturally religious, which means that we do have an element of ourselves that needs to have a connection with the greater whole, whether it be not only the community, not only the planet, but cosmos itself. And that's because we're made of the same materials as the cosmos. And if we want to go back into the material world, it is even as above, so below. So if it's the same element that makes a star and makes us, then there is a connection whether we want to accept that or not. And I wanted to ask you if you can tell us a little bit about Uranus in Taurus and the new element of Jupiter coming close, because it's already in Taurus, coming close into the conjunction with Uranus.
Yes, in April 2024, Jupiter and Uranus will make a conjunction in Taurus, and Jupiter is a planet that makes bigger everything it touches, but bigger, it can be positive or negative.
I'm aware of that because I have my Sun Jupiter, so I gain weight quite easily, which is one of the ways that Jupiter can work with us. Yeah.
By the way, I know someone who knows astrology and who had transiting Jupiter coming to ascendant, and she said, okay, Jupiter will now help me really losing my weight, and she did it. She lost, I don't know how many kilograms using Jupiter and this logic. No, I don't want to let Jupiter to make me bigger. I want to redirect the energy.
She used the happiness element of Jupiter.
Yeah.
I want to be happier.
Yeah.
And therefore, yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes, sometimes we cannot really redirect the energy, or sometimes we just have something which changes our life also, which is very unpleasant. But later we say, okay, this is one more scare on my face, but it's like we gain wisdom. This is also Jupiter. Even if something what happens is not that favorable, but we learn always from our experiences. So I'm not sure if I would tell something, but I have to.
You will find a way, because
it will not sound very optimistic, but we'll try to redirect the energy. And so now in April 2024. Jupiter and Uranus will meet, so planets of expansion and philosophy, and the other planet of radical things and geniosity, they will meet in Taurus. And they meet on the sky every 14 years. But in the last 100 years, they met only once in an earth sign, and they met in Taurus. And when did this happen? This is what I say. I have to share it. It's not that optimistic. They met in May 1941. So in last 100 years, the only time when they met, this was the year when during the Second World War, so the Second World War started to be global. At the end of 1941, the USA declared war on Japan, and then Germany and Italy. But what I want to say now, the Second World War expanded, but also ended, after this, after a few years. It really expanded. I cannot compare it with the situation now, and this is why I doubted if I would mention it. I don't want to make people afraid, like now we have, a few wars and tomorrow they expand to the old war, to the whole world, because I think that we are already in a sort of war. We are already in a sort of, this constant confrontation with different thoughts and information, and it's for sure media war and political war, not only with weapons. Psychological war can be a wars, every material war.
Yes, of course,
is
it's a psychological warfare. What I wanted to say, if we think about the late 30s and the early 40s, what we can see is that it was quite obvious that things were leading to a head. It was not hidden. It was not a thing that happened and everybody was very surprised.
Yeah.
It was steadily leading to that conclusion. And something in the time now is also putting us in a frame of mind that if this is the way we think we should be heading, without trying to reach out and find a solution that will not be extreme, this is where we're heading. And I think that is very realistic. And we were talking about the need for realism, and that is a very realistic. History is the greatest teacher if you want to see how things might conclude or proceed. You look at history, not just within astrology, in our own personal histories and collective histories and national histories, we can see how things turn out if a certain path is taken. So I think it's very important for people to be aware of it.
Yes, and so I go back to 1941. So 14 years before this was constant development of big leaders, extreme political ideas, and it had this political situation, war situation, had this culmination in 1941. But between 1941 and 1955, there was, end of war and the beginning of creation of new societies, new political ideas, and we cannot say now it's the same, and it's never the same. But I think that now we are really at the top of some sort of tension, and this during 2024 and 25, we slowly go to much clearer position, and we are able to see what we do with our experiences and which reformation we do, which collective ideas we follow. Something has to be much more clear, and especially because Neptune and Saturn, so planets of ideas and dreams, and planet of very concrete and practical implementation of ideas, they will meet on the sky, first time in the summer 2025, and then again exactly in January 2026.
In Aries.
Yeah, and in Aries, in 0 areas.
Yeah.
So they they finish their journey through Pisces. So Saturn has now 2 years and a half long journey through Pisces, and Neptune much longer. They finish it, they go together to Aries, the first sign. So, okay, now we start, okay, reset. But I mean, really, I hope positive reset of everything what happened, and we start again building some new ideas, societies.
So what do you say about the conjunction between the planet of boundaries and the planet of no boundaries?
Yeah, this is a good question. I remember, astrologer Darby Costello. She speaks a lot about Saturn in Pisces, and constantly says, okay, we build our arc, our personal arc. We have to be together with people that are a little bit, on the same brain waves. And then we have no idea where are we going to, but we are together, and we make boundaries in our microsystems, and then we see which boundaries will the world give to us, which ground we are going to come with our boat. And it's this process of Saturn and Neptune is impossible to direct. We only have to navigate our own lives in the way that we can, but there are so many factors that we cannot predict. And I would
like the weather. It's like sailing a ship that has to be aware of the weather because it cannot control the weather.
Yes. On the other side, there are people who claim that some power centers try to control the weather, but they can control some local weather. Of course, we can control some clouds with rain or whatever people can now control.
I think power centers do try to control the weather, but whether they control the weather entirely is a different story. But they do try.
Yeah, they try, but it's always locally. Globally, nobody. It's just nobody. Never in history. This is what history for sure teaches us, and this will not change. That it's impossible that just one person or one power center controls the whole world, everyone. It cannot, because there are also those divine elements, and people say, I can also say weather. We don't know if tomorrow one meteorite will come to the Earth, or the super volcano will start to.
It's very simplistic solution. I think that people go to it when they are pretty desperate and want to find an understanding of something that seems quite chaotic. But I think that, and then we speak of Pluto, and with that I would kind of want to finish our conversation about the astrological and talk a bit about you, is that with Pluto, which is, we started with Pluto and then we went to all the other planets, but with Pluto, we talk about power and hidden power. And I think that power is always moves towards what is in the weather most convenient spot to place itself, and of course to remain hidden. So because Pluto is the hidden and yet the extremely powerful, when it moves into Aquarius, what would be your advice to people, if any, to deal with not only with the idea of where power lies, so where is our power, what is our relationship with power, how to challenge power, when not to challenge power? I think that's an interesting maybe way to think about the Pluto ingress into Aquarius, not only in connection to AI, which was, of course, immediately when it went into Aquarius, it was started to become a key question, who are we giving our power to? Yes. So yes, what would you advise people how to navigate that generation?
First of all, we have to empower ourselves. What we said, to see, okay, who am I, and to love and respect. Probably it's too simplistic, but it is like this. Love yourself, accept yourself as you are, and then start with people around. Start again. Okay, my family, they are guilty for this and this. I don't agree with this. Okay, can we start to connect with them again? Probably we are not the same. Probably we had some shared history which is not that pleasant, but probably we can reconnect and be okay. Well, where are our friends? Where are new friends? Where are people we agree with? Who is an example of a fantastic person? What does this person have? And then not look to the stars like, one star is bigger than the other. Of course, stars are all small finally, but I'm a star between other stars, and we all shine. And we can empower the dark sky by, producing those small lights of connections with people around. And just to go back to 1941, while people were very much occupied by wars and conflicts, but also the first fully automatic computer was invented by Konrad Zuse. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name very well, but it's like there is something electronic and something, artificial intelligent, I would say, produced, which helped people. Computer help people. We cannot make this podcast without computer, without all Uranian things. So now, because we already have computers, electricity and whatever, but I expect that something comes, that human intelligence, not artificial, but natural intelligence, makes something which can connect us in some way. I don't know what. I'm expecting in those years some new things that we don't see, but the only thing what we can do is to empower ourselves, and I go back to this, to feel our soul, to feel our connection, to step back from people and themes that we cannot change and that irritate us, and to change what we can change, and to be social. To be social, it's extremely important. We don't have to have 20 friends. We can have 1, 2. We don't even have to have any very close friends, but to be social, to have people to chat, to communicate, to exchange words and emotions, it's extremely important in this period.
I think also to be very aware of what our power issues are. And I think that's also connected to what you were talking about, Chiron in Aries, is that similar to Chiron, Pluto has very much to do with trauma. So to be aware of how we implement what our power is in our life, what is our relationship with the power of others, to at the same time be assertive and let others be assertive with their own power. It's a very important thing on a micro level, which you were saying, in order for the macro to work. And now I would like to ask you one thing, and that is, when did you become interested in the macro? Because I know you for a very long time, that you start with micro interests. So if you don't mind telling us just a little bit about what you were doing before you became a full-time astrologer.
Okay. I have the word alchemy and metaphysics in my head, because first I studied just chemistry, so I was also working some time at the University of Novi Sad, and while I was doing experiments in the organic chemistry, we did synthesizes. We synthesized some small pieces of DNA, and I was also reading astrological books, because those experiments were very, very long, and sometimes I had some extra time and I learned about it. And then all colleagues, assistants, professors, they realized that I'm behind the scenes, that I was doing astrology, and they asked me to interpret their horoscopes. And it was fun in the beginning, but then the fun stopped with the terrible war that happened in the territory of ex-Yugoslavia where I was living in the time, and then people started to ask me to do their charts, and I transformed to a professional astrologer. But about the word cosmos, it's very important to emphasize what does this word mean. The original meaning of the word cosmos is order. Order and fascination by something which is on its place and so regularly connected. This is antonym of the word chaos. And chaos, it means disorder. And cosmos, like we look at the sky and we see, regularly, the sun is going around. This is what we see. That is the moon is coming, the stars are coming, and then disappearing. And so this microcosmos and microcosmos are, it's already Platonic themes, and then probably before Plato also. Like, how can we make order in own personal life, and then make a society which is also organized with some rules which are connected with the sky and rules of the sky. And of course, planets create music, and there is also art and fascination by beauty. And this way of thinking, I realized when I started to work as astrologer, and very quickly I also enrolled the Faculty of Astrological Studies by correspondence in the time. And
that was around the mid-90s, because that's when I met you, and
yes.
I started actually going to your little astrological school.
Yes.
I practiced astrology beforehand for some time. I think from when I was 13, 14, I started reading. But then you were the first one that I heard of that I thought was a serious person that really took on and made a school. And I think that's, the Saturnian, when you speak of order, you took it quite seriously from the start, which is quite interesting, because you were at the point of finishing to start working in one profession, and then you took another profession, and that profession you gave it your all from the very start.
Yeah,
that's how I saw you. You just give it your all and dedicate yourself to this.
Yes, I personally, in this period, I had this aspect Pluto squaring my sun. So this is a Pluto experience, and this experience I can share with all people who are now having Pluto aspect. So, and this is like, if we fight against Pluto, if we say, okay, I just want to realize what I want, then we see that Pluto is stronger. We just can't. And this happened with my chemistry. I really loved this research. I was very enthusiastic about chemistry and alchemistry. I thought as a part of a team, we will make huge projects and help the humanity. But some higher power, but this is more, this irrational power led me totally to this other way. And I learned, and I think it's very helpful, also connected with Neptune now, I just learned to read signs. So my idea was to organize a very serious, good structured astrological school here in Novi Sad, now it's Serbia, in the time it was Yugoslavia. And I started to invite teachers from the faculty. You remember Jane Raquel
Yes.
Malcolmson, who came many times, and then Suzy Verde, who came from Brazil. And we also went to TV and radio and presented astrology like a language of symbols in some way, which really excludes this fundamentalistic, the predictive side of astrology, and speaks about this mythological language of planets. And I had this vision. I was so passionate and enthusiastic. And then in one moment, again, without me really predicting this, life redirected my personal life, and I went to Belgium. I moved to Belgium in 1999, and because I married, and I started from zero, totally other style of life. So I learned in the meantime that we have to accept, things which we did not predict in advance, but which are good for us. It's like to believe in this higher power and to work together with this higher power and to take best from what we can. And I'm very thankful, for this change. This means also dying of my dreams at the moment. And this was painful on one side, I have to admit. But I had another life, and another dreams came with this other sort of life. And then I started to reconnect with Great Britain and started to work for the Faculty of Astrological Studies. In the meantime, I had my diploma. And then I really developed a serious, different position. I had different positions at the faculty. Now I'm a council member. I'm a summer school.
You became part of the system, really, a system that an existent system that welcomed your participation, and that it gave you, because of course we have to mention the side of astrology that in Western society is, although it's becoming more and more accepted, it still has an outsider's position. And the reason it has is manifold. There's many reasons for that. But I think the most important one is that people have prejudice against it through different, either because of the way it's commercialized, that a lot of people that really don't know much about astrology are making their business out of it because they think it's easy. So there's a lot of reasons, very valid reasons, but the most important is the prejudice and the last 300 years of how our scientific thought took hold. And for a scientist like yourself, a very serious scientist, to start working within astrology and within the astrological knowledge is, for me, a very interesting point in positioning astrology. If somebody like you took on this path and is very serious about it, and now I'm talking truly for people that are not interested in astrology and are prejudiced against it, then maybe there's something that could be learned from it, whether or not people really think that it has anything to give. Because from my mind, I'm a psychologist in my first profession, first studies and then film. But before I became a psychologist, I was an astrologer, in the sense that I was interested in astrology. And everything I learned about astrology really had an impact on understanding not only the workings of the cosmos, but the workings of our own psyche. So it is an old psychology, which psychology itself has a problem with accepting. So how do you navigate this particular boundary between legitimate and illegitimate knowledge?
Yes,
as seen by Western academia, of course.
Yes, first of all, I think that the problem is always lack of communication and lack of good communication. And in the world of astrology, I will not now go back to a few hundred years ago and René Descartes and all transformation of focus of scientific world on the practical and material and experimental, which excluded astrology from the academia. But I want to go to period now. And not long ago, there were some scientists, very serious scientists and Nobel Prize winners, who signed a declaration against astrology and who said astrology, this is not a science, and we just say we advise people not to do anything with astrology. And one of those skeptics who actually started this project of against astrologers met Jeffrey Cornelius, who is, psychological astrologer, professor at the university. Also, he was the head of one department of myth and story. And in Canterbury, there is a department of sorts which supports also psychological astrology. And so Jeffrey Cornelius came to this person, so number one skeptic against astrology, said, okay, you organize this declaration against astrology, but do you know what is astrology? And he said, yeah, but this is prediction. But he said, it's not about predictions. Astrology is connected with art and philosophy and belief, and it's actually between everything. It's not just a science. Astronomy is a science which says, okay, here are planets, but astrology makes a poetry of this. And Jeffrey Cornelius asked him, if he would say that astrology is a poetry of the sky, would you ever be against it? And they said, oh, no, of course not. So finally, scientists who said, or some religious people who claim that they're against astrology, they are all against the ability to predict future. That's the problem. But astrology is not the ability to predict the future. Astrology is a language of symbols, a language of the sky, a language of the soul. And this is what now is the theme of many people, especially in Great Britain. I don't know about other countries. I know a little bit about other countries, but I can speak about Great Britain because I did master in cultural astronomy and astrology at the University of Wales, Trinity St. David in Lampeter. And there are, not dozens, there are hundreds of people now, and there are more and more, who just, pop up everywhere, and they all are connected, I think, also with Pluto in Aquarius time, which is coming, and we'll say, okay, let's start again, make a dialogue. What we are talking about? What are you against? What are you trying to accuse as something wrong? It's also, it's the phenomenon, it's Uranian phenomenon which appears now everywhere, like even now with gender issues. We cannot really say that we are 100%, man or woman or whatever it is. And people start to really have voice and to say, no, I think differently, I feel differently. But also in science, there is not just one science. There are social sciences, the biological sciences, medical sciences, and we start to speak, and still we are in sort of confusion. But there are so many people who try to organize their thoughts and to say, okay, I take this part and I will make order in this part. I will speak about psychology, mythology, working with dreams, creative therapy, therapy with myths, mythology, and then we have a new landscape of science, of modern science, which tries to integrate with the still bigger part of scientific world, which just keeps telling, okay, what you can prove by experiment, this is true. What you cannot prove by experiment is not true.
I mean, in some ways, psychology has a very similar problem. And that is that a lot of the research is just qualitative. Some things are very hard to be experimented on and to be within an experiment, because you cannot really reproduce the conditions that are necessary to carry out certain things. And I think with astrology, because there's so many ways that you can apply astrology, and there's so many different viewpoints on astrology, different schools of astrology, from now the comeback of the Hellenistic astrology, then the evolutionary astrology, then the astrology that relies heavily on psychology. There's so many different ways that things can be applied, and because astrology was used for prediction for thousands of years and is still used by some astrologers, I think that the idea of introducing poetry into it as a word, I mean, you are now at Lola The Poets podcast, so poetry is a big thing with me. I always thought that it's very interesting in terms of prophecy that the Oracle of Delphi really what they did, because they were all women and there were women in their 40s and 50s, they really applied poetic verse to prophecy. So there is always this Neptunian element, which is the element of the interpretation of the person to the prophecy. The same thing I would suggest is to do with astrology, because there are different kinds of clients. And if you are, like you yourself are, somebody with a lot of personal experience and professional experience, you know that the approach to different clients, the approach is different to different clients. So the way that astrology often works is that it's taking the form of people go to consult with astrologers in a lot of ways that are not predictive at all. They're very psychological. And that is, I think, also the problem with other sciences and psychology, astrology, because it is going into their terrain. But as a psychologist, if you know of a person's character, there is quite a lot that you can say of how this character can develop and what it can lead to. So one could say that if somebody gets a diagnosis of, let's say, a personality disorder, it's an actual prediction of how somebody will act and what problems they would get into and what might happen to them. So in that way, it's quite unfair to put this burden on astrology of predictiveness, because it does exactly the same thing.
Yes, but yes, with people with really serious disorder, we cannot do anything. Astrology cannot help. But with people with curiosity or with openness to astrology, there is this phenomenological factor, and there are several projects that I know about this eureka effect that happens during one astrological consultation, and it happens in most of properly created astrological consultations. And this is that astrologer explains, tells poetry, explains, with keywords, with some ideas, what really happens on the sky. And this is prediction, like next year Pluto will make conjunction with your sun 3 times. It will happen. But what will be your reaction on this? We don't know. But we can speak about power struggle, and ask, okay, what is your aim? What is the sun? This is the center of the being, light. What do you want? We ask questions. We speak about different things. And the person in one moment just knows, yeah, that's it. That's what I want. That's how I will do it. So astrological consultation is always a sort of initiation of those inside powers or inside qualities of the person. But when I when I speak about astrological consultation, then I really mean people who are educated.
Of course, yes, that's very important. That's a very important point. Yeah.
Very simplified. Someone can have Saturn conjunction Sun, and someone can come and say, okay, someone will die, or this will happen, or this, but we never know who will die, and people die. It's
yes, of course. You're talking about transits of Saturn.
Transit. Transit of Saturn on the Sun. But if we speak about Saturn with all things that we already said in this podcast, like planet of responsibility and fears and projects and time and whatever, then we speak about, taking time and doing projects, and then asking, do you have any project? Do you have fear? Do you have are you blocked, and why? It's psychological actually working.
It's almost working with that. You translate in a way the planets, and the chart becomes a mediation in which you translate the relationship of somebody with that particular kind of energy, that particular kind of character of a planet. And absolutely. that is very much something that we have internalized within ourselves. Yes. Yeah. What I wanted to ask you because I would like to go now towards what you're doing now and your fascinating research. What was your eureka moment when you realized that you wanted to research the celestial symbolism?
Yes,
monuments.
I was very much fascinated by all those fantastic people who managed to regenerate the word astrology at the academic level. And first of all, this is Nicholas Campion, who organized this master of cultural astronomy and astrology. And there are other names that I don't have now in my head. I'm very sorry to other people who actually started before Nick, and then Nick Campion is the person who was my teacher, my tutor, my director of the department, and this department which really exists at the university, and so many students who are doing MA and PhD in something connected mostly with astrology. And I also said, okay, I did it like my own therapy at the moment, because I missed something in my life, something which would really fascinate me, because I had in one moment normal life, but with daily life which missed something. And I wanted to do the dissertation on comparison between psychology, astrology, tarot reading.
And it's a PhD.
No. For my master, I speak my master in cultural astronomy and astrology, because I did master first in Wales, and then I had a module archaeoastronomy, and I was thinking what is easiest for me to do, and there is Lourdes Ostaker, which is Lourdes in France, when Virgin Mary appeared, and they have some small other like cave when the same version appeared, and this is a big church was made there as a pilgrimage place, just 15 kilometers from the place where I live in Belgium. And I said, okay, I will do a small, for this module, I had to write about something in buildings, which is connected with the sun and the moon. And I discovered in this place beautiful paintings of laughing sun and moon and miracles and all the sky issues. And then I had to do dissertation, and I just did not have any wish anymore to compare, psychology, astrology. And I said, but in Serbia we have beautiful paintings with personified sun and moon and planets and zodiac. And so it was again not my plan. So my life brought me there, and I went to visit the Visoki Dečani Monastery and Bogorodice Ljeviška Church and Lesnovo Monastery and other places. And I discovered so beautiful, beautiful mural paintings of the sky. And when you look at this, it's like you can feel this fascination and this belief of those people from the 14th century who were all involved in those projects, and people who came there to pray. And as the really eureka moment and an absolutely fascinating moment was when I went to Lampeter to this day of proclamation, when all students came to receive their diplomas and master and PhDs. And Nicholas Campion said to us, there were only 9 of us who received the master and PhD in 2016, and he said, okay, you have to come before all others, and I may not share what will happen, but you will have a special treatment. And we came there, and we had a surprise. The patron of the University of Wales, and then he was the Prince of Wales, or officially His Royal Highness Prince Charles, came to visit us, and he talked to every single of us, every single person about our project. And it's, this sign that you find on your way. I just felt like, okay, I'm valued, I'm respected for what I do, and I do it from my heart. I have no reason to have another master or to have a PhD title, but like to speak about something, to connect different cultures, to try to understand or to present this poetry of the medieval sky painted in those beautiful churches. So this was something which totally, came in my system, and I'm just following those signs. And finally, I landed at the University of Oxford, where I also organize a summer school for the Faculty of Astrological Studies. But now I go further with my research on this poetry.
Yes, I think that because you're also, we haven't really touched upon your theological studies, but you have great interest in theology. And at the same time, you feel elevated by the murals, but you are also elevating the theoretical work regarding the murals and the intersection with astrology, or rather cosmological phenomena that are on the paintings, and connecting this geography with other geographies in Europe and hopefully in the world, which is what you have, I think, done your whole life. Now, kind of when we're coming towards the end of the show, it's really that you act as a bridge between many things, which I find really fascinating in people. Although you're very serious in astrology, it's your profession, and you do consultations, and we will talk about where people can find you to get a consultation from you, you also are very serious in other endeavors. Do you mind telling us just a few words about theology and your connection with theology?
Yes, after I completed my MA in Cultural Astronomy Astrology in 2016, I realized that I was fascinated by everything, but that I landed in the territory that I didn't really know. You know, I know astrology. I know a little bit of ancient or the philosophy, especially Plato and Aristotle. But the reason why, what did they want to say? From the theological part, I didn't really understand. And I, again, I understood why, life or God or cosmos pushed me to Ghent. And in Ghent, there is a theological institute, which is very much connected with the Saint-Serge Institute in Paris. This is an Orthodox Theological Institute. And in Ghent, in Flemish language, they have this 4 years long school for teachers of Orthodox theology. And as a voluntary student, I followed like 80% of all modules, and I even went to exams. And I was so fascinated by some, church fathers, and especially with 14th century theologians like the Gregory Palama, and his energy theory. I name him like Nikola Tesla of theology in this period. So I think, still this is a process now. It's I have no conclusions yet, but now I try to connect my theological knowledge with paintings, with the history of art, with cosmology, and just like example of how people were thinking before, long before. I will come again to the poetry. Learning about building of Hagia Sophia and other temples, churches, monasteries in Constantinople. Everybody who does this research has to come to Procopius of Caesarea, who was writing unbelievably complex texts, poetical texts about architecture and his feeling when his observation of Hagia Sophia. And 100 years ago, a translation of those texts was in one place. It was the light is shining fantastically, in Hagia Sophia, and it's okay. Light, there are windows or whatever, and light is coming. It's nice, but a modern translation said no, it's incorrect translation. He said in the, I think, 6th century or 7th century, I don't know when he lived. He said the light is smiling when you enter Hagia Sophia. It's totally different. It's not shining, it's smiling. The light is like personified, and everything has some virtues or reasons or evokes emotions, and that's what I try now to say, in connection with those monasteries and churches that I observe, and I try to figure out what they in this period felt. We don't have written evidence like, okay, we wanted to paint personified the sun and moon in the crucifixion fresco because we think that it's that and that. No, not at all. It's modern way of thinking. And yeah, so now I try to follow the theological ideas and values and to understand what happens during the liturgy and how this cyclus of time goes through 1 year, and there is time which is not movable and dates which are movable, and then mural paintings which are following this according to the dynamic of time. So it's complex. It's work in progress. It's fantastic.
It is absolutely fascinating, and also I like the idea of the lost in translation, because with translation is such a important part of history, and if it's done wrong, it can do a lot of damage. And I think that through what you're doing, you're also translating concepts that maybe are not that knowable, and understandable for many people, into the language they would understand, but without losing the poetry.
That's nicely said. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I think it was absolutely wonderful, and that there's a great deal that people can learn from it. People that are interested in astrology, and perhaps some that are not. Now, if you can please tell us where people can find you, if you have anything published, if you plan to have anything published. Everything will be in the show notes, in links, so people can find it easier. But yes.
Okay, I will. I can share some published articles, and I can share my website and my email. But I can send it to you, and you can connect this.
Yes, I will put it. It will be all in the show notes with the show, wherever the show is. So people can find it. But if you can just say a few words about how it's easiest for people to contact you, and if you can tell us your website. So just for the audio listeners, because some people, they might be driving and listening to this show, so they know.
Yeah, I don't dare to spell my my website or my email, because people can be lost in letters there. But via email, it's always the best way to contact me is via email that I will share. So it's dragana.vandemortel@gmail.com. But really, Dragana and Vandemortel, it's all letters have to be correct.
Yes. They will see this. They will see it in the title of the show. So it won't be that hard.
Okay. So people can contact me via email.
Yeah. How long do people need to, with bookings, what would you advise them? How early should they book for consultations? Do you have, a schedule that you work in?
Yeah, it's connected with the seasons or months. Sometimes I have much more work. For example, January is already so full for me that I cannot accept consultations because I give Speaking to the Times seminar for the Faculty of Astrological Studies, and I start with few more new courses for the faculty, and I have other things to do. But August is also very busy, because then I'm in Oxford coordinating the summer school of the faculty. In other months, I think, so except January and August, probably one to 2 months is waiting list.
Okay, 1 to 2 months in advance. They should. Yes. Well, thank you again.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
It was also my complete pleasure, and I hope maybe to speak to you again on the show once.
Once I complete my new project.
Once you complete your new project, there will be lots to talk about. And, the best of luck with all that you do. And
thank you, and best luck to you and to your podcast.
Thank you very much.
Greetings to everyone who listens this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you to the audience, and bye-bye.